Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video I want to talk about one of the big features that I wanted to implement in GDscriptUI. If you don't know what GDscriptUI is, it's basically a declarative framework in Godot engine to write UI interfaces by only using GDscript. So I have been doing a lot of work these last 3 months, and one of the big milestones that I wanted to achieve was to develop the feed content approach. In Godot, when we create UI, what we have is a field content. And to exemplify this, I have here a scene, and then we have a bbox container. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a button so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. When I make this button, and you can see that the button goes from the beginning to the end of the container, that in this case is until here. And if I put here hello world, we have the content of the button, that is the text, and then we have the size of the button, that is basically all the available space in the container, that is basically the vertical container. One way to handle this is that you can come here to layout, and then you go to content sizing, because basically it's expanding horizontally. We can do here shrink center, and this will make this button to have a size only using the content of the button. From Godot, as you can see, the button is growing as the size of the content. So this is called feed content, and by default Godot is field content. But now when you are creating a declarative UI, this is actually not desirable. This is a GDscript UI, and when you are making a button, you want the button always to only feed the content that it has. In GDscript UI, what I have done is that I have by default made that this button only basically goes to feed content. So this doesn't feel like a problem when we are seeing here in Godot in control nodes, because we almost have no UI. Let's imagine that now I want to add a margin container, and so the margin container should be parent of the button. And so this margin container, as you can see, is also field content. If I want this margin to only use the size of the button, so I will have to come here and say, yes, I only want to be the size of the button. And now let's say that we want to add a panel to be the background of this button, the margin container. So what I can do is reparent to new node and say panel container. And well, as you can see, we have that the panel container is also using the field content approach. And when you are creating the nodes from code, this is actually a problem, because all the nodes are gonna be behaving like this. It might sound very easy to just come through each node and just make it field content, but what if instead of wanting them to feed content, what if you now want them to expand? I'm gonna create a button here. Now let's say that we want this button to expand and push the other buttons. So well, for that, maybe we might think that we have to come to the button, remove the shrink center, and just fill, but nothing happens, because in order to do this we need to come to the panel container, that is the outside node, the outside control node of this, and we need to make it to expand. And I know this because I have been working with Godot for a while, but what if you don't know this? This will not be easy to do. You will have to come through each node. For example, here I have an HBox container. If I want this HBox container to not fill, I will have to say, hey, I want you to shrink center, for example. We will have to specify. And then what if we want this button to shrink? Doing this to each element is not the perfect experience. What we really want is that we want smartly to just specify to the button, in this case here to the button, hey, I want you to expand, and then I want your parents to also expand. So that's essentially what I have been doing, and I'm gonna run the code to show you how this looks. So in here I have a few buttons. So if I press this button, this other button will expand, and this change, because this is reactive. Any changes that happens in the bindings, in the state of the binding, will make the UI to refresh. If we write conditional code, for example, if we want here that if the value of this binding that is fit change to true, so in this case if it's true, we want it to show infinity, but if it's false, we want it to show fit content. For example, if I do this, as you can see. This is another feature that is called bindings, that is something that I have developed for GDscriptUI and help us to make this seamlessly reactive UI, which is actually what you want when you want to develop a declarative UI. I'm gonna be talking about it in the next videos, but what I'm here to show you is how, when I'm toggling this, let's go to the button. When I'm toggling this, what I'm doing is saying, hey, if fit is true, I want you to go infinity. It's false, I want you to fit content. And that is the only thing we need to make this button. Basically here we have a background that is essentially a panel container, and this padding is a margin container for now, because this is gonna change in the future. But at the end it will behave exactly as I'm telling you. It is a padding, we are adding a margin, and then this background that is creating the blue, because I'm also saying that if fit is true, I'm adding this color that is blue, and if fit is false, I'm adding this gray color. As you can see, now it's gray and now it's blue. And essentially I'm just telling this button I want you to expand. It's also expanding the margin, and it's also expanding the background. Now another example of this, and this was something actually that took me a lot of work to develop. I'm gonna click this button that says show labels. So right now we are working with fit content. We are now working with fit content, and this means that we are making this text to push the other text, because we want this text to use more space as it grows. So if I remove text here, as you can see, the text label is going smaller. If we remove all the text, then we are basically not using a space there. So if I say this label will grow with the content, the other label will be pushed until there is no more available space. So this is fit content acting right now, that because this label is bigger, we want the other label to be smaller. And something important is that we also want, if we are saying that one label is gonna use all the available space, if we want the label to grow infinity, we want them to be equally. So for example, if I toggle here, now we have that this button is growing, and even though this label here is bigger and this label is smaller, because we are toggling it to grow infinity, all of them are basically being equal, fill expand in a control node. Now we can still keep putting text here, but nothing will change, just the button will grow vertically, but horizontally it will remain the same. And if I make it fit content again, as you can see, now this label is occupying more space, and dynamically we are saying to this button, hey, I want you, and I want the margin and the panel to go fit content. And we are also saying to this other label, and I want to grow, or I need to have more space. And then if we set all of them grow infinity, they will basically occupies equal space in the available space. So this was actually not easy to build, because Godot, when you make labels in Godot and you want to use grab content, and Godot forces you to decide a minimum size, and when you do that you cannot do this easily. So I have done some calculations behind the scene to be able to do this. So this has been a lot of work, and now this works thankfully, and this is one of the biggest milestones that this project has reached, apart from the bindings and apart from being able to refresh the UI. So that's it, guys. I just wanted to show you this, and I'm very excited to continue developing GDscriptUI, and I hope that you also find some interest in this project. See you in the next one. Bye bye.